Hands down, Rambo. First Blood.
Hands down.
Hands down.
Rambo.
You gotta go with Rambo.
Why is that?
It's a great motivator in real life, all the way around. We want to talk about the aspects of tech advising and things of that nature. But if it wasn't for Rambo, I actually never would have made it to LA or Seattle, because they shot up in Seattle.
Get out of here.
Well, they shot in Washington.
Okay. Who do you think would win the battle, Rambo or Commando?
Rambo. Easy. Come on.
What about Arnold from Predator?
Ooh.
Think he could beat Rambo?
You know what? I think Arnold from Predator can beat anyone.
Dutch, that's his name, right? Dutch?
Yeah.
Okay, so Commando Arnold couldn't beat Rambo,
No.
but Dutch could.
Yeah, because Dutch was like a mercenary. He's like, I'll do whatever.
Yeah.
Commando Arnold, he was prompted into going out.
All right. Well, we could certainly talk about this all day long. This is a subject of heated debate. Hey, vets, welcome to Veterans Nation. We are media for those that served.
23 million strong. So vets out there and civilians alike, get off that Call of Duty game and join us here in the real world.
Whoa, Sergeant Danzy locking some heels here. Yeah, locking some heels. All right.
And let's say hello to our ageless producer, Rick Seaman, on watch behind us.
Behaving proudly.
Okay, every show we dedicated to a unit in the military. And Kelly, will you do us the honors?
Our show today is dedicated to the 3rd Marine Division. The 3rd Marine Infantry Division, it's based out of Okinawa, Japan. Thanks for
Hoorah.
your service.
Thanks, Kelly. So, Kelly, Trevor, what do we got going on today?
Well, it's never a bad time to talk about veterans organizations.
That's never a bad time.
I mean, they work for the veteran members, but they also get out and work within the communities.
Yeah, that's very true. And one important benefit that veterans need to be made aware of, these organizations they're called service officers. And these are trained specialists. They can help a vet out with any type of VA claim or process that you might be having difficulty with.
That's right. Right. They're advocates. They're like having a rep who knows the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're like a veteran's attorney, but they're really not attorneys. That's a whole another ball game. Now we're going to be doing some shows here, Veterans Nation shows, that are going to be talking to veterans attorneys, actual attorneys, and we'll find out where they play, and especially in the case of claims denial. That's where the attorney can really come into play.
Yeah, Rick, hasn't Veterans Network done shows before with veterans attorneys?
Yes. Matter of fact, we have, and we did one with this legal group from Washington, D.C. They came on when we had the new PTSD laws, the requirements for filing a claim for PTSD, and that was very informative.
That's right. We actually have a lot of archived videos here in the Veterans Network with panels of experts having to do with anything from attorneys, veterans law, VA denials. Just go to the search box on the homepage and type in any of those keywords and they'll pop up.
Yeah, all good stuff. So we're going to take a break. We're going to be right back and talk about today's issue, which is combat in video games.
Combat in video games.
And what about it?
Well, I want to know what your guys' take is on that.
Well, my personal take is I think it's fine. I think it'd be to have combat in video games because I know when I was a kid growing up, I certainly had all those shoot 'em up games like Contra, and well, there's a bunch of them out there. And I think every generation has its own military video games, and I think it's really just up to the parents having a intelligent discussion with their kids about what they're seeing. You know.
Right. I definitely think it's up to the parents to monitor that. But I think a lot of these video games are almost good training. Like honestly, I was surprised when I was getting out of the military, a lot of like younger guys who were coming in playing Call of Duty and games like that. They already knew all about the different weapon systems we were using, and even like urban combat tactics and stuff. And I was like, well, how do you know this? And they're like, oh, Call of Duty. Wow, really?
So they're good educational tools.
I think so.
But as long as they don't think that that's the real thing,
Right.
right?
Well, also, like, I'm not really into video games, especially that sort of
Oh, you play
crap.
Strawberry
The
Shortcake?
guys at work do it. My Little Ponies. No, the only thing that I have to say about this sort of stuff, because I don't know that much about it, is that if you think back to our childhood, before we had iPads and all kinds of like really great digital stuff, people were playing G.I. Joe. My little sisters used to go out in the woods and play Navy SEALs. Like there was always
Cowboys and
combat.
Indians.
Cowboys and
Yeah.
Indians. Like there's always been combat. That's like the nature of the human race.
I always had
It's
Nerf
just-
guns
it's
growing
now-
up.
See?
Yeah.
It's just that it's now being brought into stuff that kids are more used to dealing with, and yet I just personally think that it's a little different for us, considering that's not what we grew up with, so maybe it's not right, but to them I think it's still make believe. I don't know that they really correspond that to real life until
Well, I don't
you
know. Some of
obviously
those
get older.
kids get dressed up in full camo and paints, right? Right now, I mean, am I wrong? Haven't you seen kids get all geared up when they're playing video games?
I actually don't play any of the video games.
Wait, while they're playing the video game?
While they're playing the video game.
A non-player right
Yeah,
here.
I never could get into it at all whatsoever. However, I did play Coltrane on Gears of War 3. I played that character and I had no idea who he was.
Nice.
And all of my friends who did play was like, "How do you not know who he is?" But it is what it is. I was just at the CES and a lot of their helicopters, their RC helicopters.
And what's the
made with
CES?
Consumer Electronics Show.
Uh-huh.
And they use the same controllers as games because it was easier for people to learn on that because they're so accustomed and so used to the game controller than the actual old school big huge panel for flying helicopters.
So then why do people bring up video games as such a big deal with kids nowadays and the combat that's in them? Why do you think?
If it's not going to be that, it's going to be something else. It's just shucking off responsibility that the parents should be being responsible for.
Yeah.
So they're just pawning off their responsibility and blaming.
I'm sure that at one point in time they were saying that G.I. Joe was bad.
Yeah,
What were you gonna say, Rick?
Well, no, we just had this tragedy.
Or the school
The
shootings?
one in Connecticut, right?
Right.
So the kid was always playing video games. The kid was a little, off, and it backfired. Now, was that the main reason? His mom was a gun person. She had the house, loaded to the bear, loaded for bear. So you're always, but we used to play cowboys and Indians when I was 5 years old, with rubber guns,
Right.
and 99% of us just went on.
Well, I think the comedian Chris Rock said it best when he goes, "Whatever happened to just crazy?" You know,
Yeah,
people are just crazy.
You always want to blame something else. There's something wrong with that kid long before you ever played a video
Right.
game.
So you guys are saying you feel that the producers of these games are being totally responsible.
I
They
think
know
that
they can capitalize on it.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that
well,
I think
that's-
that they are
yeah.
being responsible to the level where if they're reaching out to the military community and actually bringing on veterans, real veterans, to come on and be consultants and advisors to the game, then I think they're being responsible in their product, in what their product is.
Right.
And I just, it's my personal opinion. I think most of us agree that if parents just have honest discussions with their kids, it's not the video games to blame. It's how they're bringing up their kids and how they perceive what they're playing.
Good.
Well, for Columbine, didn't they say that it was Marilyn Manson?
I was
That the
just
reason why, and
gonna bring
was
that
up.
Music.
Yep.
So like I
So
was
they
saying
blamed the
before,
music.
if it's not gonna be the video game, it's gonna be something else. And as far as the producers go, their only responsibility is to the product and the bottom line.
That is true. You're right. And
money driven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Okay, well, let me just ask you guys one more question, and then we'll get off of this. You guys were all combat troops, all of you. Did you ever come across a situation where one of your fellow soldiers just couldn't handle it? He just broke down in the middle of a firefight and just let you down, you know, and only to find out that it was because he spent his whole life in an Xbox, and when the real deal came, he didn't know how to handle it.
Well, I mean, he wouldn't be deployed if, when you say he spent his whole life with an Xbox and then
He gets
you don't just
deployed.
all of a sudden find yourself deployed. You go through training. You train for that situation.
So-
you know, I mean, I think you can say that about someone who hasn't been trained and all of a sudden is in the military and they're deployed like just like that. But
Right.
even if you do spend your life on an Xbox or PS3, you still have to go through that training, basic training that everyone goes through in
Right.
the military, and mentally prepare yourself and realize that that video game world is completely separate from the real deal. You
Yeah.
know.
Right, and I mean, I was deployed with infantry guys. If anything, I think it's the opposite. Being in the infantry, I noticed that the kids who were more sheltered and not allowed to play violent video games or see violent movies growing up, they're the ones that had the most culture shock going into the military and going into combat. If anything, I think in a way, video games, at least a little bit, prepare kids.
Exactly. It's just, you know, if
Yeah.
you're a parent and you have a kid, just make sure you understand that they understand what it is that they're playing, you know?
Right. Now, we're talking about it, all of us, from a veteran's perspective. And for the most part, a combat veteran's perspective, which we all are. How do you think the mothers and fathers that have no idea what combat's like or have no attachment to the military, do you think maybe that they're the ones that are really getting the wrong message here? Because, I mean, we hear a lot about combat video games are not good for these kids. So where's that coming from?
You know, that's a great question. But again, just because they haven't served in the military doesn't mean that they don't understand the difference between what you see in a video game and real life combat.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, sure.
Sounds
I mean-
to me like they just don't want their kids exposed to any sort of violence, which is ridiculous.
I think there's always just a scapegoat for behavior. People are always looking for something to blame it on. You know, my kids aren't behaving. It's because they play too many video games. It's because they do this.
And if you know, most families have a family member that served in the military or know someone who has. And so why not invite that person over to explain the difference
Right.
instead of trying to explain it on their own? Plus, the games themselves have rating systems, you know, so you know that if the combat is really extreme or there's too much blood, you already know, you know, just by looking at the box what to expect. So,
Okay. Here's an idea. Why don't we pose this question on the next Veterans poll on Veterans Network site?
sure.
Shall we do that?
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Consider it
What's
done.
the question?
The question will be, as we start most of the questions, as a veteran, comma, do you feel combat video games are harmful to young children? Should we word it like that?
Sure.
Okay, consider it done. There's our poll icon up there on the screen. We find that icon on the home page of Veterans Network. Same page that you're looking at us on right now. So there it is. Vets, let's hear your voice.
Say it loud and clear. Let us know what you're thinking.
Yeah, yep.
All right, well, I think time's up.
Time is up. Trevor, Kelly, Rydell, Rick, thanks for another great show and joining us on Veterans Nation.
Thank you, Mike.
Company, fall out, and we are out.
Welcome home.